Today on our 2017 Ford Edge, you're going to be taking a look at, and I'm going to show you how to install the Roadmaster Easy 5 base plate kit with removable arms. Part number RM-524444-5. This is what our base plate looks like when it's installed. This is going to be one of 5 main components in a flat toe setup. The other 4 are going to be your tow bar, your braking system, your wiring, and your safety cables. This is going to help you safely flat tow your vehicle down the road while you're traveling. As you can see with our base plate installed, it's not going to stick out of the front of the vehicle too much when not in use, so it's going to help the vehicle maintain that nice clean look. It's going to have your connection points for your removable arms, safety cables, and your wiring accessories. As far as the installation goes, it is a fairly straightforward, pretty easy installation. It can be done in just a couple hours. Honestly, I think the hardest part about installing this, and it really wasn't hard, it was just more time consuming, was taking everything, all the hardware out to get the fascia off. It's going to come with all the necessary hardware. There's 2 holes that you have to drill, but all you're doing is widening holes that are already there, and can be done with basic tools. With our removable arm, you're going to have a spring-loaded pin like this. On one side, you're going to have a tab. This tab, when inserting to no right or left or passenger or driver's side, needs to be on the upside and toward the center of the vehicle. So that's going to help you know which side to put it on. If you put it on this side, it's going to be down below. We don't want that, we want it on top. All we're going to do is we're going to push this in, which is going to collapse our pin, spin it. It's going to lock it into place. To remove it, you simply just pull the pin, twist back the opposite way. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let me show you how to get this installed. Beginner installation, we're going to have 12 pushpin fasteners that we're going to need to remove on our radiator cover. All we're going to do is you're just going to pull up the center. You can use a flathead screwdriver or a trim panel tool like I've got here. Just pry up the center like this, and you get it to pop out. I want to make sure we get out the bottom piece if they come separated. And we're going to set this aside to be reinstalled later. Next, we're going to have 6 10mm head bolts that we need to remove across our grill here. One here. Again, we're just using a 10mm socket. And one here. You can see how the edge of the grill comes out. It's different than this here. We want the ones that look like this. This one here, this one, and this one. Next, on the inside of our fender well is, if you want to use a power tool like this, turn your wheel. We're going to have 6 5.5mm head bolts that run right along this edge that we need to remove. Once you remove those, kind of peel your liner back and right up. I don't know if you can see it. You look right up here. There's some 8mm bolts that are holding your front fascia to your fender. We need to remove those also. Once you get the 2 out on one side, you're going to repeat that same process on the other side. Once you get the top 2 removed, you're going to have a third one right here. And you're going to repeat the same process on the other side of the vehicle. Next, we're going to have 14 5.5mm head bolts that we need to remove from underneath our vehicle. This black plastic splash shielding we need to remove. We're going to have 2 right back here. We're going to have 2 along this outside. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across the front. And then again, we're going to have 4 more on this side of the vehicle. And we're going to have 4 7mm bolts that we need to take out. Now in the direction it says these are T30 Torx bits, but you can see that they're not. Unless these were changed at some point in time. Right now they're 7mm bolts, head bolts. we're gonna have 2 in the same position on the other side. Next, we're gonna have 2 push pin fasteners. We're gonna have one here, and we're gonna have one on the other side of the vehicle. We're gonna take a flathead screwdriver, a real small one, to pry out that center like that. We'll use our trim panel tool, or you can keep using the screwdriver, just get a little bit bigger one. The smaller one might be a little hard. And we're gonna do the same thing with the other one. Then we'll set it aside to be reinstalled later. Here on our driver's side, we don't want to forget, if we have fog lights and sensors, we need to remove the electrical plugs. So this is going to be one, this is going to be for the fog lights. We're just going to push in on the black tab right here on the top and pull out. And we're going to have 3 connections right down here. These are going to come off the same way. Push on the black tab there. We're going to have one here. On these lower ones that are a little bit bigger. If you push the plug in first, before you push that, it might make pulling it off a little bit easier. There. Again, we're only going to have that on the driver's side. If your car has a front camera with a sprayer, you're going to have a hose connected to it right back here. So what we need to do is pull the fascia off. Like that. We don't want to pull too hard because, so we're going to pull our hose off here. Just like that. We're going to spread this little ring apart. It'll pop off. Then we need to go around and we need to pull these off so that we can hang this hose on the car. We're going to take a flat head screwdriver, a small one. You put it kind of in between there. You can pop that loose. And push it back on so it doesn't leak. We're going to do that to all of our clips. Just like that. And then we'll set our fascia aside. Next, we need to remove our ambient temperature sensor in this fastener. We'll go ahead and start with this fastener. Trim panel tool, flathead screwdriver, pull it out like that. Do the same thing with our sensor here. Be careful with the sensor, we don't damage it. Just like that. We're just going to leave that hang for now. Next, we need to trim out around this housing. On our passenger side, we're going to trim out from here, like this, up to this corner. Just like that, and all this is going to come out. On our driver's side, you look right up here, you see a little notch. We're going to go from there, which is about here. We're going to go all the way around to this first bend. We'll go out like this. And then right up along that corner, all the way like that. I'm gonna be taking this part out right here. I'm gonna try using a utility knife. This outside is rubber, it's gonna cut pretty easy. This part right here is plastic. If you're having a hard time cutting that plastic with your knife, use a rotary tool or a Dremel tool with a cutting blade. We'll cut through it. But let's try with a knife first, see what happens. Just like that. And then we'll go ahead and cut out our driver's side the same way. Next, you're gonna have a shock absorption pad on each side. It's a little plastic thing on the front of your bumper beam. We're gonna have one on each side of our vehicle. We're gonna need to cut this off. So right along this inside edge, we're gonna mark just like that. And we're gonna remove this part. Doesn't have to be perfect, we just need to remove this pad here. We're actually going to cut off all the way over to here. Just like that. We'll do that same thing on both sides. Next, you're going to have a shim plate like this. You want this flat side to face out, and you want the bend, or the bend here, to face down. So it's going to sit just like that. Next, go ahead and get your hardware ready for your U-bolts. Now, you can see we're going to have two different nuts. The nuts we're going to be using on our U-bolts are going to be the locking nuts, or self-locking nuts. And how you can tell them apart is this little dimple right here on the top. You're going to have 4 of these in your kit. So you want to make sure that you're using these locking nuts on your U-bolts. Next, take a 10mm socket. We're going to have 2 bolts here that are holding on a radiator support. We're going to have 2 here on this side and 2 on the other side. Go ahead and remove them. Next, before we set our base plate in place, what I want to do is I'm going to take my U-bolts off. We're going to add some red Loctite to the threads. Then we'll just set it back in place. And do the same thing to our other side here. Now with an extra set of hands, we'll get our base plate into place. Line up our U-bolts. We'll take our locking, self-locking nuts. Thread them on. Next, we're going to tighten and torque these to the specifications and the instructions. We're going to make sure, because it's a U-bolt, you go back and forth on them. So we'll do a couple turns here and then a couple turns on the other one. We're going to repeat that on the other side. Next thing we need to do is we need to take a 1/2" drill bit coming from the bottom, using our base plate as a template, and we're going to drill out this hole that runs through here to 1/2". So we want to make sure our bit comes all the way through the top. Just like that. And we're going to take some black spray paint or clear coat. We want to spray that bare metal to reduce any rusting or corrosion that later on down the road. Next, we're going to have 2 1/2" bolts that look like this in your kit. Washer plate. We're going to put that large washer on. We're going to drop this down through like this. Lock washer. Again, make sure you have Loctite on there. And the nut. Now we can tighten and torque it to the specifications and the instructions. Next, we can put our radiator support back in place. Go ahead and tighten those down. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Next, we need to remount our ambient temperature sensor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back behind my base plate here. Pull around like this. And I'm actually going to zip tie it just like that. Just like that. And we'll cut off our excess. Here on our driver's side, you have your wire loom. We're going to be taking out this connector and this connector. We're going to leave the center ones. Trim panel tool, and we'll just pop them out of place like this. We're going to have to relocate these up to the top. So, what we don't want is we don't want that to go through to where you can see it on the outside. These little spots here, or little tabs, are for this black grill on the bottom. If we go this way on it, you're going to end up being able to see it. So what I might do is maybe not put this one in and just do this top one. If I pull it over to this side, this is kind of hollow right here. So I'm going to stay close to this edge. I can get that up. This will keep my wire on this side up in the air, and I don't have to put it in then. So we'll use a 3/16 drill bit and drill a small hole there so we can put this wire loom back in, or connector back in. Stick that into place like that. All the rest of this should be good. Now you can see I've temporarily just set my fascia back into place. What we need to do is we need to cut out in our grill for our base plate to come through. So we'll take a marker, just like there. So this whole section is going to be cut out here. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. Now I'm just going to take some cutters like this. We're just going to file our lines. Now you can see I've gone ahead and cut out around my safety chain hookups and my base plate here. And it doesn't really matter how you cut it out. I like to try to stay as close as I can with a honeycomb grill like this. Sometimes it can be hard and you may not be able to get it exact, but you can see how I cut it. I had to go around this one, and then over on driver's side, same thing, and then our wire connector hookups, and make sure we cut a little slide out for those to come through. Before we put our fascia completely back in place, put all of our hardware back in, if you're installing any wiring, now would be a good time to do that while you have your fascia off. It's going to make it a lot easier with mounting everything here. Now, if you put a 6-pole plug in here, 4-pole plug, there is a little bit more cutting out you're going to have to do right in this area. Make sure you install that wiring first before you get this totally back in. Once you've added your wiring, your braking system, anything else, when you go to put your fascia back in place, you're just going to do it in reverse order from the way you took it off.
That'll do it for a look at an installation on the Roadmaster EZ5 base plate kit with removable arms, part number RM-524444-5 on our 2017 Ford Edge.